The neon pulse of Havana Station's entertainment district cast shifting shadows across the crowded promenade, where beings from a dozen different worlds mingled in the perpetual twilight of artificial atmosphere. Marcus Reed moved through the crowd with practiced ease, his weathered leather jacket and confident stride marking him as someone who belonged in the station's seedier quarters. At 32, he'd spent the better part of a decade running cargo through the Outer Rim territories, building a reputation that preceded him into every cantina and trading post from here to the Andromeda Spiral. Tonight, however, something felt different. Call it smuggler's intuition or simple paranoia, but Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching him. He paused at a vendor's stall, pretending to examine a display of exotic fruits while his eyes swept the crowd. Nothing obvious stood out, but the itch between his shoulder blades persisted. Paranoid old spacer, he murmured to himself, flashing his trademark grin at the vendor before moving on. The package secured in his jacket's inner pocket seemed to pulse with its own weight, though he knew that was just his imagination. He never asked questions about his cargo, it was safer that way, but this particular job had paid enough to make him wonder what exactly he was carrying. The Nebula's Edge Cantina appeared ahead, its holographic sign flickering between languages as it advertised drinks and companionship in equal measure. Marcus pushed through the entrance, immediately enveloped by the warm hum of conversation and the sweet smoke of various recreational substances. He'd arranged to meet his contact here, someone called Brightwater who claimed to represent a collector of rare artifacts. Marcus claimed his usual spot at the bar, ordering a glass of Corellian whiskey from the six-armed bartender. The amber liquid burned pleasantly as he sipped it, his eyes automatically cataloging the room's occupants. Traders, spacers, a few off-duty station security officers, and in the far corner booth, a figure in a dark hood who seemed to be taking an unusual interest in the bottom of their drink glass. "You're late," a voice said behind him, soft as silk and twice as dangerous. Marcus turned slowly, his hand instinctively moving toward the blaster at his hip, only to freeze as he found himself staring down the barrel of a sleek energy weapon. The woman holding it was unlike anyone he'd ever seen. Her skin held a subtle violet hue that seemed to shimmer in the cantina's dim lighting, while her eyes were the color of polished silver, reflecting depths that spoke of worlds he'd never imagined. Her hair fell in dark waves around her shoulders, and her form-fitting black outfit suggested someone accustomed to moving through shadows. "I think you have me confused with someone else, beautiful," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the weapon trained on his chest. "I'm just here for a drink." Her lips curved into a smile that held no warmth. Marcus Reed, freelance cargo hauler, pilot of the ship Wandering Star. Born on New Terra, parents deceased, no known permanent address. "You're carrying something that belongs to my employer." "Your employer has expensive taste in help," Marcus replied, leaning back against the bar with studied casualness. "But I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about." "The artifact you picked up on Kepler Station 3 days ago. Small, crystalline, probably humming with energy even now." Her silver eyes narrowed. "My name is Zara Nightwind, and I've been tracking you across 5 systems." Marcus felt his pulse quicken, but kept his expression neutral. The woman, Zara, was clearly dangerous, but something about her intrigued him beyond the obvious threat she represented. There was intelligence in those alien eyes, and despite the weapon she held, he sensed this was someone who might be reasoned with. "Assuming I did have such an item," he said carefully, "what makes you think I'd just hand it over to someone I've never met?" "Because the alternative is considerably less pleasant," Zara replied, though Marcus caught a flicker of something, uncertainty, in her expression. "You have 10 seconds to decide." Marcus studied her face, noting the slight tension in her jaw, the way her finger rested on the weapon's trigger. Then he smiled, the expression spreading slowly across his features like sunrise over a distant planet. "Any last words, human?" Zara asked, her voice dropping to a deadly whisper. Marcus leaned forward slightly, his grin widening. "Yeah," he said with infuriating confidence. "Safety's on." For a split second, Zara's eyes widened in surprise, her gaze flickering down to her weapon. In that moment of distraction, Marcus moved with the fluid grace of someone who'd survived by being faster than his opponents. He knocked her gun arm aside with his left hand while grabbing her wrist with his right, pulling her close enough that he could smell her exotic scent, something like starflowers and ozone. Not bad for primitive species, Zara hissed, attempting to break his grip. She was stronger than her slight frame suggested, her muscles coiled with alien power. "I'm not just any human, sweetheart," Marcus replied, spinning her around so her back was pressed against the bar. "I'm the human who noticed you've been nursing that same drink for the past hour, waiting for me to show up." Their faces were inches apart now, and Marcus found himself momentarily distracted by the way the cantina's lights played across her violet skin. Her eyes held flecks of gold he hadn't noticed before, and her lips, despite their current expression of annoyance, were surprisingly full. "Who hired you?" he asked, his voice dropping lower. "The syndicate? The corporate council?" "Nobody hires me," Zara replied, though her struggles had ceased. "I choose my own contracts. And what made me so lucky?" Before she could answer, the cantina's atmosphere changed. Conversations died as armored figures appeared at the entrance, station security, their weapons already drawn. Someone had reported the disturbance. "Friends of yours?" Marcus murmured. Zara's expression shifted from annoyance to concern. "If they were, I wouldn't be looking worried." Marcus made a split-second decision. He released Zara's wrist and grabbed her hand instead. "Emergency exits behind the bar. You coming or staying to explain things to security?" For a heartbeat, Zara hesitated. Then her silver eyes met his, and she squeezed his hand. "Lead the way, smuggler." They moved together, slipping behind the bar as the security team spread through the cantina. The bartender, wise in the ways of such establishments, had conveniently disappeared, leaving the back exit unguarded. Marcus led Zara through a maze of service corridors, his knowledge of the station's layout proving invaluable. "You know this place well," Zara observed as they paused at an intersection. "I make it my business to know every port I visit," Marcus replied. "Especially the ways out." They emerged onto a maintenance deck overlooking the station's docking bays. The wandering star sat in berth 7, her hull scarred but serviceable. Marcus activated his ship's remote systems, watching as the boarding ramp descended. "Nice ship," Zara commented. "She's not much to look at, but she's fast when she needs to be." Marcus turned to face her fully. "So, Zara Nightwind, now that we're not pointing weapons at each other, want to tell me why that artifact is so important?" Zara studied him for a long moment, her alien features unreadable. "Because it's the key to saving my people," she said finally. "And you're the only one who can help me find where it leads." Marcus felt something shift in his chest, a recognition that his carefully controlled life was about to become infinitely more complicated. But as he looked into Zara's silver eyes, he realized he didn't mind the prospect nearly as much as he should have. "Well," he said, offering her his arm, "I suppose we'd better discuss this somewhere more private. Care to see the inside of a real smuggler's ship?" As they walked toward the wandering star, neither of them noticed the cloaked figure watching from the shadows above, or the message being transmitted to coordinates deep in uncharted space. The game, it seemed, was just beginning. The hyperspace tunnel collapsed behind them as the wandering star emerged into the Valoria system, its twin suns casting golden light across the ship's viewport. Marcus guided his vessel toward the emerald jewel of a planet that hung before them like a promise of paradise. Valoria was known throughout the galaxy for its luxury resorts and absolute discretion, exactly what they needed after their hasty departure from Havana Station. "Impressive," Zara murmured from the co-pilot's seat, her silver eyes reflecting the planet's verdant surface. "I've heard about Valoria but never seen it." "The playground of the wealthy and paranoid," Marcus replied, his fingers dancing across the navigation console. "Perfect for people who need to disappear for a while." During their 3-day journey, they'd established an uneasy truce. Zara had explained that the crystalline artifact was one of 7 keys needed to unlock an ancient ethereal vault, though she remained vague about what the vault contained. Marcus, for his part, had admitted that his mysterious employer had paid him enough to retire comfortably, a detail that hadn't escaped Zara's notice. What neither of them discussed was the growing tension between them, the way their hands would brush when reaching for the same control, or how Marcus had caught himself watching the graceful way Zara moved through his ship's cramped corridors. Incoming transmission, the ship's computer announced in its maddeningly cheerful voice. Marcus frowned. We shouldn't be getting any calls. This ship's registration is clean. The holographic display shimmered to life, revealing a man Marcus had hoped never to see again. Tobias Blackwater's ruggedly handsome features were marred by a scar that ran from his left temple to his jaw, a souvenir from their last partnership. His dark hair was shot through with premature silver, and his green eyes held the cold calculation of a born predator. Hello, Marcus, Tobias said, his voice carrying that familiar hint of mockery. Fancy meeting you here. Toby, Marcus replied, his jaw tightening. Still using that charming personality to win friends? Tobias chuckled, the sound lacking any warmth. I heard you were traveling with company these days. Lovely companion, by the way. Zara Nightwind, isn't it? Your reputation precedes you. Zara's hand moved instinctively toward her weapon, but Marcus caught her wrist, shaking his head slightly. What do you want, Tobias? The same thing she wants, I imagine. The ethereal artifact you're carrying. My employer is quite eager to acquire it. Tobias leaned back in his chair, the gesture casual but somehow threatening. I'm on Valoria now, staying at the Celestial Gardens Resort. Perhaps we could discuss this over dinner. For old time's sake. Marcus felt Zara's tension through their brief contact. And if I refuse? Then things become unpleasant. You know how these situations tend to escalate. Tobias's smile was sharp as a blade. Besides, I have something you might find interesting. Information about who really hired you for this job. The transmission ended, leaving Marcus and Zara alone with the weight of this new complication. Former partner? Zara asked, her voice carefully neutral. Former everything, Marcus replied bitterly. Tobias and I used to run jobs together, back before I learned that trusting him was a mistake. What happened? Marcus was quiet for a long moment, his hands gripping the ship's controls. He sold me out to the Kepler Syndicate. Left me to die in a prison cell while he walked away with our score. Took me 2 years to escape. Zara placed her hand over his, the gesture surprisingly gentle. We don't have to go down there. We could run. No, Marcus said, covering her hand with his free one. Running won't solve anything. Tobias is like a virus, he keeps coming back until you deal with him permanently. 2 hours later, they were walking through the opulent lobby of the Celestial Gardens Resort, their cover story established. Marcus wore a tailored suit that transformed him from scruffy smuggler to wealthy businessman, while Zara had chosen an elegant dress that complemented her violet skin and made her look like exotic royalty. Remember, Marcus murmured as they approached the reception desk, where Marcus and Zara Thorne, investors from the Outer Rim looking for a quiet retreat. The receptionist, a statuesque woman with opalescent skin, smiled warmly. Welcome to Celestial Gardens. Your suite is ready, and I believe you have a dinner reservation this evening. That's correct, Marcus replied smoothly. My associate mentioned he'd made arrangements. As they were escorted to their suite, Marcus couldn't help but notice how naturally Zara slipped into the role of wealthy sophisticate. She moved with regal grace, her alien beauty drawing admiring glances from other guests. Their suite was a masterpiece of luxury, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of Valoria's crystal seas. A single king-sized bed dominated the sleeping area, its implications hanging in the air between them. Cozy, Zara observed, her tone carefully neutral. I can sleep on the couch, Marcus offered, though part of him hoped she'd refuse. We need to maintain our cover, she replied, but her silver eyes avoided his. Married couples don't sleep separately. The afternoon passed in careful preparation. Marcus checked his weapons while Zara meditated, her alien disciplines helping her center herself for the confrontation ahead. When evening came, they dressed for dinner with the solemnity of warriors preparing for battle. The resort's main dining room was a cathedral of crystal and light, with tables scattered across terraced levels that seemed to float above a holographic ocean. Tobias was waiting at a corner table, his own companion a surprise, a tall, elegant woman with the characteristic golden skin of the Altarian nobility. Marcus, Zara, Tobias rose as they approached, his manner superficially cordial. "May I introduce Lady Serafina Goldstar, my business partner?" As they sat, Marcus studied the dynamic between Tobias and the Altarian woman. There was something calculating in her golden eyes, an intelligence that matched Tobias's own predatory nature. "Such a lovely couple," Serafina said, her voice carrying the musical accent of her people. "How long have you been married?" 3 years, Zara replied smoothly, her hand finding Marcus's across the table. "We're still in the honeymoon phase." Marcus felt a jolt at her touch, at the way she smiled at him with such convincing affection. For a moment, he almost forgot they were acting. "Charming," Tobias said, though his eyes remained cold. "Now, shall we discuss business?" "I prefer to eat first," Marcus replied, signaling the waiter. "I find negotiations go better on a full stomach." The meal that followed was a careful dance of words and implications. Tobias spoke of mutual benefit and shared profits, while Serafina added subtle threats wrapped in elegant phrases. Through it all, Marcus and Zara played their parts perfectly, the devoted couple reluctantly drawn into dangerous business. "The artifact," Tobias finally said as dessert arrived, "is worth more than you know. My employer is willing to pay 10 times what you were originally offered." "And who is your employer?" Marcus asked. "The same person who hired you originally," Serafina replied, her golden eyes glittering. "It seems there was a miscommunication in the delivery instructions." Marcus felt Zara's hand tighten on his, a warning. Something was wrong here, but he couldn't put his finger on what. "I find that hard to believe," he said carefully. "Believe what you want," Tobias shrugged. "But consider this. Why would a simple collector pay such an extraordinary sum for a single artifact? What aren't you being told?" Before Marcus could respond, Zara stood abruptly. "Excuse me, I need some air." Marcus watched her go, noting the tension in her shoulders. Something Tobias had said had struck home. "Trouble in paradise?" Tobias asked with false sympathy. "She's fine," Marcus replied, though uncertain he nodded at him. He found Zara on the resort's observation deck, her silhouette framed against Valoria's night sky. The twin moons cast silver light across her features, highlighting the ethereal quality that made her so striking. "Want to tell me what's really going on?" he asked, joining her at the railing. Zara was quiet for a long moment. "The person who hired me to retrieve the artifact, she's my sister." Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. "Your sister?" "Celeste. We haven't spoken in 5 years, not since." She trailed off, her silver eyes reflecting the moonlight. "It's complicated. Try me." Zara turned to face him, her expression vulnerable in a way he'd never seen before. "She's part of the ethereal High Council. She believes the artifacts can be used to restore our homeworld, but the process would require destroying several inhabited systems to power the restoration." "And you disagree?" "I believe in saving our people, but not at the cost of genocide." Her voice was barely a whisper. "I've been planning to steal the artifacts from her, to find another way." Marcus stared at her, pieces clicking into place. "So you're not just a bounty hunter. You're a rebel." "I'm someone trying to do the right thing," she replied. "Even if it means betraying my own family." They stood in silence, the weight of her revelation hanging between them. Finally, Marcus reached out and took her hand. "Then we'll find another way," he said simply. Zara looked up at him, surprise flickering across her features. "You do that? Even knowing what it means?" I've been running from complications my whole life, Marcus replied, his thumb tracing gentle circles on her palm. Maybe it's time I stopped running. The moment stretched between them, charged with possibility. Then Zara stepped closer, her free hand coming up to rest against his chest. This is dangerous, she whispered. Not just the mission. This, whatever this is between us. The best things usually are, Marcus replied, his voice rough with emotion. Their lips met in a kiss that was tender and desperate at the same time, two people finding solace in each other amid the chaos of their circumstances. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing heavily. We should go back, Zara said, though she made no move to leave his arms. Probably, Marcus agreed, equally reluctant to end the moment. They returned to find Tobias and Serafina gone, leaving only a message crystal on the table. Marcus activated it, revealing Tobias's familiar smirk. Thought you might want to know, his recorded voice said, your wife isn't the only one with family issues. Check the news feeds about the ethereal homeworld. Seems there's been a development. The message ended, leaving Marcus and Zara staring at each other in growing alarm. What could he mean? Marcus asked. Zara was already pulling up the galactic news networks on her personal device. Her face went pale as she read, her silver eyes widening with horror. The Ethereal Council has announced the beginning of the restoration project, she said, her voice hollow. They're saying they've acquired the first key. Marcus felt the artifact in his jacket pocket, the crystalline device that had seemed so innocent hours ago. But we have the key. No, Zara said, sinking into a chair. We have one of the keys. There are 7 total, and if Celeste has started the project. How long do we have? Weeks, maybe days, depending on how many keys she's already collected. Zara looked up at him, her expression desperate. Marcus, we can't let this happen. Billions of people will die. Marcus knelt beside her chair, taking her hands in his. Then we won't let it happen. We'll find the other keys first. You don't understand, she said, tears forming in her alien eyes. The keys are scattered across the galaxy. Some are in the hands of collectors, others are hidden in ancient ruins. It would take months to find them all. Then we'd better get started, Marcus said, his voice firm with resolve. But first, we need to get off this planet. Tobias won't stay away forever. As they prepared for another hasty departure, Marcus caught Zara watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. What? He asked. You realize you're throwing away a comfortable retirement to help me save people you've never met, she said softly. Marcus paused in his packing, considering her words. You know what I realized tonight? A comfortable retirement doesn't mean much if the galaxy burns while you're sitting on a beach somewhere. He turned to face her fully. Besides, I've got a good reason to want this to work out. What's that? Marcus smiled, the expression transforming his features. I've got a beautiful woman to impress. Despite everything, Zara laughed, the sound like silver bells in the night. You realize this is probably going to get us both killed? Probably, Marcus agreed, sealing his pack. But it beats being bored. As they prepared to leave Valoria behind, neither of them noticed the figure watching from the shadows of the resort's garden, or the message being transmitted to coordinates in the ethereal home system. The game was becoming more complex, and the stakes were higher than either of them realized. But for the first time in years, Marcus Reed was exactly where he wanted to be, standing beside someone worth fighting for, facing impossible odds with a smile on his face and hope in his heart. The wandering star cut through hyperspace like a silver needle threading through the fabric of reality, its hull humming with the strain of maximum velocity. Marcus had pushed the ship harder than ever before, knowing that every hour they delayed meant thousands more lives at risk. 3 days had passed since their escape from Valoria, and the galactic news feeds painted an increasingly grim picture. Zara stood before the ship's holographic display, her violet features illuminated by the swirling data streams. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy, unusual energy readings near the ethereal homeworld, mysterious disappearances of archaeological teams, and most disturbing of all, the evacuation of 3 star systems, for their own protection. "She's moving faster than I expected," Zara murmured, her silver eyes tracking the incoming reports. Celeste always was impatient. Marcus emerged from the engine compartment, his hands stained with coolant fluid and his shirt clinging to his chest with perspiration. Over the past 3 days, their relationship had deepened in ways that surprised them both. Small touches that lingered too long, shared glances across the ship's cramped corridors, and conversations that stretched deep into the ship's night cycle had woven an intimacy between them that neither could deny. "The hyperdrive's running hot," he reported, accepting the towel she offered him. "We'll need to drop out of hyperspace soon for repairs." "How long?" she asked, though her eyes were focused on the way his muscles moved beneath his shirt. 6 hours, maybe 8. Marcus noticed her distraction and felt his pulse quicken. "Zara?" She blinked, a faint lavender blush coloring her cheeks. "Sorry, I was just thinking about your sister. Among other things." She moved closer, ostensibly to study the star charts, but Marcus caught the subtle scent of starflowers that seemed to follow her everywhere. "Marcus, there's something I need to tell you about the artifacts." Before she could continue, the ship's proximity alarms began wailing. Marcus lunged for the pilot seat, his hands flying over the controls as he brought them out of hyperspace. Through the viewport, a massive vessel hung against the star field like a predatory beast, sleek, dark, and undeniably ethereal in design. "That's the Celestial Harmony," Zara breathed, her face paling. "Celeste's personal ship. I thought you said she didn't know where we were." "She doesn't. She couldn't." Zara's words were cut off as a tractor beam locked onto their ship, drawing them inexorably toward the larger vessel's docking bay. Marcus reached for the weapon controls, but Zara caught his hand. "Don't. If she wanted us destroyed, we'd already be dead." "Comforting," Marcus muttered, but he allowed her to guide his hand away from the weapon's console. The docking procedure was smooth and professional, a testament to ethereal technology. As the wandering star's engines powered down, Marcus turned to face Zara fully. "Whatever happens," he said, his voice intense, "I want you to know that these past few days, they've meant everything to me." Zara's silver eyes shimmered with emotion. "Marcus, I..." The airlock hissed open, interrupting her words. A figure stepped through that was unmistakably Zara's sister, though where Zara's beauty was warm and vibrant, Celeste's was cold and perfect. Her violet skin held an almost crystalline quality, and her platinum hair was arranged in intricate braids that spoke of high rank. Her silver eyes, so similar to Zara's, held none of her sister's warmth. "Hello, little sister," Celeste said, her voice carrying the musical accent of the ethereal nobility. "You've led me quite a chase." "Celeste." Zara stepped protectively in front of Marcus. "You look well. Genocide suits you." Celeste's perfect features didn't change, but Marcus caught a flicker of something, pain, in her silver eyes. "Always so dramatic." "I prefer to think of it as necessary sacrifice for the greater good." "The greater good?" Zara's voice rose. "You're talking about destroying entire civilizations." "I'm talking about saving our people," Celeste replied calmly. "Our homeworld is dying, Zara. The atmospheric processors are failing, the oceans are turning to acid, and our birth rates have dropped to near zero. In 50 years, there will be no more ethereals in the universe." Marcus stepped forward, his presence drawing Celeste's attention for the first time. "And you think murdering billions of innocent people is the answer?" Celeste studied him with the intensity of a scientist examining a specimen. "The human. You're more attractive than I expected, though I suppose that explains my sister's distraction." "Don't talk about him like he's not here," Zara snapped. "Oh, but he is here, isn't he? And that's the problem." Celeste moved with fluid grace to the ship's small table, her hands clasped behind her back. "You were supposed to retrieve the artifact and return home, Zara. Instead, you've been playing house with a smuggler while our people suffer. I've been trying to find another way. There is no other way. For the first time, Celeste's composure cracked, revealing the passionate desperation beneath. Do you think I want this? Do you think I enjoy the thought of what must be done? I've spent decades searching for alternatives, consulting with the greatest minds in the galaxy. The restoration matrix is our only hope. Marcus felt the crystalline artifact in his jacket pulse with warmth, as if responding to the conversation. What exactly is this restoration matrix? Celeste's eyes sharpened. Show me the key, and I'll explain everything. Marcus looked to Zara, who nodded reluctantly. He withdrew the artifact, its faceted surface catching the ship's lights and throwing rainbow patterns across the walls. The moment it appeared, both sisters' expressions changed, Celeste with hunger, Zara with something approaching fear. Beautiful, isn't it? Celeste murmured. 7 keys, forged by our ancestors before the Great Exodus. Each one contains the concentrated life force of an entire world. Life force? Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. The keys aren't just technological devices, Zara explained, her voice hollow. They're crystallized souls. The life essence of everyone who ever lived on the worlds they represent. Celeste nodded approvingly. Very good, sister. Yes, the keys contain the spiritual energy of extinct civilizations, worlds that were consumed in the great cosmic disasters of millennia past. Our ancestors gathered this essence before the planets died, preserving it in these crystalline matrices. Marcus stared at the artifact in his hand with new horror. And you want to use this tomb, to power your restoration? The souls within are already dead, Celeste said matter-of-factly. Their sacrifice will give life to a dying race. It's a beautiful symmetry, don't you think? It's obscene, Marcus replied, but he found himself unable to look away from the artifact. In its depths, he could almost see faces, thousands, perhaps millions of them, frozen in crystalline eternity. The process requires all 7 keys, Celeste continued. I have 4 in my possession. This makes 5. The remaining 2 are hidden in the Whispering Temple on Chronos 7, a world your people consider mythical. Because it's supposed to be cursed, Marcus said. Not cursed. Protected. The temple's guardians have waited for centuries, keeping the final keys safe until the proper time. Celeste's smile was sharp as a blade. That time has come. Zara stepped between them again. I won't let you do this, Celeste. There has to be another way. Then find it, Celeste replied, her voice suddenly weary. You have 72 hours. If you can discover an alternative that will save our people without requiring the Matrix, I'll listen. But if not... She gestured, and Marcus became aware of the subtle hum of weapons powering up throughout the larger ship. You'll kill us? Zara asked, though her voice suggested she already knew the answer. I'll do what I must, Celeste replied. Just as I always have. The tractor beam released them with a gentle lurch, and Celeste moved toward the airlock. At the threshold, she paused, looking back at her sister with an expression that was almost human in its vulnerability. I loved him too, you know, she said softly. Kieran. He would have wanted me to save our people, no matter the cost. The airlock sealed behind her, leaving Marcus and Zara alone with the weight of revelation. Marcus sank into the pilot's chair, the artifact still clutched in his hand. Kieran? He asked. Our brother, Zara replied, her voice thick with old grief. He died in the first atmospheric failure, trying to repair one of the processors. Celeste blamed herself, she was the one who assigned him to the maintenance crew. Marcus set the artifact carefully on the console, as if it might explode. And now she's trying to bring him back by destroying the galaxy. She's trying to create a world where his death meant something, Zara corrected. It's not the same thing, but I'm not sure she can see the difference anymore. They sat in silence for several minutes, each lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Marcus reached for the navigation controls. So, he said with forced lightness, Kronos 7. Never been there, but I hear the weather's terrible and the locals are unfriendly. Zara looked at him in amazement. You're still willing to go? After everything you've heard? Marcus turned to face her fully, his expression serious. Zara, 3 days ago I was a simple smuggler looking for an easy score. Now I'm sitting here holding the souls of dead civilizations while plotting to stop a genocidal resurrection. My life has gotten complicated in ways I never imagined. He stood and moved to her, taking her hands in his. But you know what? I wouldn't change a thing. Because it brought me to you. Zara's silver eyes filled with tears. Marcus, you don't understand. The temple on Kronos 7, the guardians don't just protect the keys. They test anyone who seeks them. The trials are designed to break minds, to reveal the deepest truths about who you really are. Then we'll face them together, Marcus replied simply. And if we fail? If we can't find another way? Marcus was quiet for a long moment, considering. Then we'll make sure those keys never fall into anyone's hands. Even if it means stopping the only chance my people have for survival. Even then. His voice was steady, certain. Some prices are too high to pay, no matter what they might buy. Zara threw her arms around his neck, holding him tightly. I love you, she whispered against his ear. I never thought I'd say that to anyone, especially not a human, but I love you. Marcus held her close, breathing in her unique scent, feeling the rapid beat of her heart against his chest. I love you too, he murmured. Whatever happens next, remember that. As the wandering star turned toward the coordinates of Kronos 7, neither of them spoke of the growing certainty that their mission would likely be their last. Some conversations were too painful for words, even between lovers racing toward their destiny among the stars. The hyperspace tunnel opened before them like a gateway to the unknown, and they plunged forward together, carrying with them the hopes of the innocent and the weight of the damned. Behind them, Celeste's ship maintained its distant vigil, a silver specter haunting their path toward whatever awaited them in the Whispering Temple. In 72 hours, one way or another, everything would change.